News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. And happy to have the whole gang. Yesterday, it was really our first foray into what spring sports is all about. Tons of stuff going on. Started off with the pro day in the morning, Regents meeting in the afternoon. George is here to tell us all about what came out of that. Apparently, some people all they're mad about is that they're raising the cost of food at the
that honestly even
and they blamed it on the SEC basically.
Yeah, which is just they raise that every year. They raise tuition and food and all that stuff
just
every
to be
year.
In line with the times.
They just are using the SEC as an excuse.
Right.
But Harris was talking yesterday, President Joe Harris, about I think it would rank like 10th in the SEC, 10th highest, so not actually that high.
Food prices?
Something like that.
Concession stand?
No, like the cafeteria and stuff.
I'm going to be honest.
It's for freshmen, It's pretty
actual school?
I
got you.
Food card prices or whatever.
I'll be honest, though. You go to those Board of Regents meetings and you just sit there for 2 hours waiting for them to give you a sheet of paper, and then you do a ton of math to see how much coaches are getting paid. There's not a whole lot of
see why I'm never sent to those.
Because it's always base plus incentives and
yesterday the paper
and
didn't have all the correct amounts on there, I don't think. And so, I don't know. Shout out Eric Bailey. He did all the math. So
it can be very confusing. Anyway, we'll get some more to that, but OU Hoops is coming up this afternoon. You've got a Hoops report we put out yesterday. We got full-blown coverage of the Under Armour camp. I really enjoyed that video that you guys did yesterday, just being able to see that live in real time and comment on it, and hopefully we'll be doing that more in the future. So go check it out on the YouTube channel. Also, with all the spring coverage going on, football is practicing. We don't have any access this week. They're going to go on spring break, and then we'll start up full blast next week or the week after next when they're back to basically finish off all of spring until the spring game on April 20th. So tons of coverage coming, tons already from the newcomer day. $1 for you to sign up. If you're listening, you said, "Man, I never signed up for that Sooner Scoop stuff. I always thought about it." Do it now. It's $1. You're not going to get a better deal. $1 to sign up. You get a full month from here until you run out, and then you'll probably want to re-up for the rest of spring. So come check it out. Love what we do. Guys are killing it, and Eddie was even helping me take measurements yesterday in the office. Very exciting day. I hated every minute of that.
Doing absolutely no measuring. I was holding the, I don't know, what is that? The end of
just a measuring tape.
The measuring tape. Mm-hmm. I can't even read a ruler, so I'd be no help. We had to do
You can read a ruler. You're playing dumb now.
No, I know like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You know how many inches are in a foot?
12.
Yes. So
but
you got it.
I don't know what what are the marks called?
Well, there's
centimeters,
16th, 30 seconds.
That's what
eighths,
I don't do. We had to do
5
that
eighths
in
and all that.
Mr. Chandler's wood shop class in 8th grade or 7th grade at Hefner Middle School. Do you remember that? I guess you were a Western Oaks guy, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I didn't. We lived on the poor side of town, so I didn't have a shop class until high school. But definitely remember that. But it is not until I'm older that I'm familiar with the 16ths and that sort of stuff.
Josh was child labor. He was so poor. He was out there building stuff.
I could not read I can't read a ruler though. Definitely can't. I think I tried to cheat off the person next to me, and I ended up failing it.
We didn't even have wood shop. I think you guys might just be
old. Of course you didn't. I'm sure you guys were never going to do manual labor.
Oh, you were exactly right. There's not a single person in private school Bishop Kelly that was going to raise a hand.
Oh, my God.
Let alone...
You're not helping yourself, George, at all.
Can you hammer a nail, George?
Yeah.
You turn on a lawnmower.
He can stand next to me as I build stuff.
Eddie, you can't talk shit and say that stuff when you're the one that literally just said I can't read a ruler.
I can't.
And then you ask me if I could start a lawnmower.
But I'm telling you that I can't.
Did either of you have to mow your own yard when you were growing up?
My dad did it.
Are you kidding me?
He wouldn't let me. He wouldn't let.
Oh, he took
he
it that
doesn't let
seriously.
anybody touch.
Okay,
touch the
fair
grass.
enough.
I
think
can see
he's since retired from lawn mowing, but yeah, that was like his.
I had two
therapy,
jobs
I guess.
growing up. Like we had chores and stuff, and mine were mowing the lawn and picking up dog shit.
Because you had a bunch of dogs.
Those
dogs.
are often married.
We had cats.
Did you ever
in the
get yard
Burbank
of the
family.
month?
Do what?
Did you ever get yard of the month?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if our neighborhood had that.
Well, in the gated communities, Eddie, they don't usually.
We did not live in a gated
My
community.
parents still. I think they have a yard of the month.
Oh, it's like the HOA gives it out?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We had a big yard.
Speaking of school education, the kids are home from spring break,
Oh,
so everyone's
yeah.
favorite segment.
Yes.
A kid wants to dive on here and talk. Say hi.
Hello?
Hi.
She was ready. Talk to him.
Hi.
Hi.
Ask your dad a question for us. When are we going back to Disneyland? It's been a long time.
Probably in the next year or so.
That's right.
Say you want to go next month. There's a lot of when school's out, you need to be back at Disney all the time. Disney World. Go to the one in Anaheim. You haven't been to that one yet, have you?
Oh, you want to go to the one in California?
Yeah, but Uncle Ron's not at the one in California.
Yeah, it might be a little too woke for the girls going out there.
Are you having fun on spring break?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I want a spring break.
We went to the rodeo.
Oh, wow. Mutton busting.
Mutton busting. Yeah, how'd your sister do?
Good.
She got knocked off this time. Last time she rode it, literally, they had to pull her off the thing with the jaws of life, basically. This time she got
That thing's a big deal down in the Houston area. I think my sister's on
it's
the
hilarious.
rodeo committee or whatever.
Wasn't there like a Facebook page where you could go watch all the kids last year? I thought you sent us a link or something to Facebook.
Yeah, because you have to sign all these forms. Like, I'm sure you're signing away, right power of attorney to your child, probably. So
Now we got to catch up. Now, how old are you now, and when is your birthday?
I'm 9 years old, and my birthday is July 21st.
Ooh,
It's coming up, kind of. Couple months.
be 10. Yeah. She's the only summer one of all of us. The rest of us are all fall and winter. But
so
she
this
gets
is
to enjoy the summer.
this is the pony birthday coming up.
A pony birthday.
Yeah, you have to
No, that
have
doesn't sound
your
right,
dad
does
has to
it?
get you a pony.
Oh, yeah. Daddy has to get me a pony.
I heard a pony and a pool.
Oh, yes. A pony and a pool.
A pony and a pool. I think that's what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Do you have any thoughts on the offensive line situation, Lanie?
How's your dad's
I don't think
base?
she does.
By the way, a lot of popular opinions on talking about people's bases on the Under Armour yesterday.
There's a lot of offensive line. A lot of offensive linemen.
Did you guys show the clip of the guy that his ass was just totally out?
No, I
was that?
didn't put it out there. I don't think that we can.
that was the Zane
It
Rowe
happened,
kid.
though.
We talked about him.
Yeah,
But
I don't.
Eddie and I avoided the low hanging fruit, and George just went for it. So whatever.
Yeah,
I don't think we want to be
I
known
want
for
to be on
people
a.
that.
I don't want to make a list for tweeting out a picture of some high school kid's bare ass.
You have to worry how close you live to a school all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. Yeah.
meet my neighbors. Don't want to have to talk to them. That's probably one of the good reasons why you would never want to be a sex offender. You'd have to talk to your neighbors.
Oh my God. Yes, that's the worst part about being.
I wouldn't say that's
offender.
worse.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
It's on the list though.
All right, we did go to, speaking of men in tights, we did go to the pro day yesterday. I think everybody was wanting to see how Drake Stoops did. And basically I felt like Drake's, handled it well. It wasn't a lights out, performance or anything like that. But I think Drake knows if you like me, it's for what I do on the field, not what I do, in underwear.
Yeah, I mean, if you thought Drake was going to test well yesterday, you're fooling yourself. And he did do fine in the 20-yard shuttle and the 3-cone drill. I mean, he would have finished, I think, around middle of the pack in both of those in the combine. But obviously his 40-yard dash was a 4.67. A lot of people wanted to point at that, but look, Drake's not going to get drafted. I'd be very surprised if he gets drafted, but that doesn't mean that he can't.
He'll get a shot somewhere,
right? And the reality is, he'll probably have to spend some time on a practice squad next year, and then when his opportunity comes, he's going to have to utilize it, and he's going to have to be smart about where he picks to go in terms of his undrafted free agency.
Well, and I think Jonah Luwalu was probably the guy that looked the part more than anybody else. Yes, other than Tyler Guyton.
Well, I thought Isaiah Coe. The 34 bench reps. I think that would have been the best at the combine for defensive linemen. I just don't know. What happened to him during the individual drills? Did he pull up lame or something? He stopped.
I didn't even
after
notice
the first station or the
Coe?
first. Yeah, Coe.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see what happened. He didn't talk to the media after either, so I'm not sure.
If he was more... the way that he tested just makes you wonder why he only ended up with, I think, 11 tackles last year. He was probably better than just the 11 tackles, but I don't know.
I don't think... I know Jonah performed really well yesterday. Maybe he gets drafted late. I doubt it, though.
Yeah.
I just don't see a lot of those guys getting drafted.
It's not a hit on them. That was the lightest, smallest pro day that I can remember going to at OU in quite some time.
Not a ton of scouts and GMs or coaches. Usually you'll see at least an offensive coordinator or something, or defensive. But it's just there's no marquee guys really. Other than Guyton. I'm sure there were some offensive line coaches that I didn't notice that were out there.
Dallas Cowboys offensive line coach was there. What's his name? He's been in the league. I looked him up. He's been in the league a long time.
Been in the league since I was born, literally. His first year in the league was 87, I think is what you said yesterday.
Yeah. His name, you're going to recognize his name. Mike Solary.
But the other notable thing about yesterday, Andrew Rame did not go through any workouts. Still, did we know what the injury was, Josh, said of the combine for him?
I never actually heard. I was planning to ask you guys the same question. So, no, I don't know what seems to be slowing him down, but it certainly would have been useful for him to be able to go, and I'm sure he would have if he could have.
Yeah, he didn't have the best combine. But
and you don't know, did he go in hurt?
Yeah, I think he'll get drafted because he did have a pretty good Senior Bowl. And people know that athleticism is not really his thing. So I think someone will take him late. Same with Walter Rouse. I think Walter Rouse will get taken on day 3. But other than that, guys, I don't know.
I thought Rouse looked pretty good.
He did, but I don't. I just
not
don't
elite, but he moved well. And we don't get a chance to really see those guys just doing athletic things. They're usually out there getting yelled at by Bill when we're out there.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he's taken before the 5th round. But I don't know if there's anyone else that'll get drafted. I think it's Guyton, Rouse, and Rame are the 3.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Guys, I was sitting here looking back because we were talking about the Drake and his testing numbers and stuff. The numbers I found, and then I looked at some old stuff compared to, and let's just be honest, some white wide receivers, some white kind of slot guys that are, I think, comparable athletically.
Hunter
Renfrow is the first one that comes to mind. Hunter Renfrow broad jumped nearly a foot longer than Drake Stoops did. He also had a 35-inch vertical as compared to Drake's 30. Hunter Renfrow does not help Drake Stoops. The guy who does help Drake Stoops, Wes Welker.
Yeah. What's Cole Beasley's
Wes
combine?
Welker is actually very close.
Even at the combine.
Because they verted the same. Wes had a little better vertical. The 20-yard shuttle, I think, that's where, but Wes and Drake are in the ballpark. There are really some decent numbers that stack up, and I think Drake's a little bigger than Wes was. Wes came out at 5'8" and 6'8", Eddie, for those that are measuring it on their rulers at home. So, but yeah, I again, just looking over a couple of guys real quick, I don't want us to get real far away from what we're talking about and miss it. But like George said, this has never been a guy that was going to test through the roof. You're going to like the tape, and that's going to dictate how you treat him going forward.
I would also say on the Wes Welker comparison, his pro day was 20 years ago, and the game has changed just a little bit.
There were no slot corners.
I was literally going to ask that question. Yeah. Would Wes Welker would he have been given the opportunity in today's NFL as opposed to what it was 20 years ago.
I don't know. And
that's not to hit him. I mean, the guy had a Hall of Fame career. He was awesome.
Yeah. It's a different bit of a different game. Guys are faster, obviously. And, I think that teams are going to look at somebody that maybe wasn't as productive as Drake, but has a higher ceiling and has more speed or whatever it is. And they're going to take a chance on them. So, versus somebody like Drake, who we all know was super productive in terms of what he did statistically. I don't know. Drake's pathway to making a team next year is special teams, and I'm not talking about returning punts. I'm talking about being a gunner, or somebody like that, or somebody on kickoff or something. I was surprised he didn't catch punts yesterday, just to show teams that, hey, I can do that in a backup role if needed. But that's his way to making a roster is doing it through special teams.
And to do that, normally, I think that you usually find those guys that are really fast, that can get down the field and then be physical enough to bring somebody down. And, as much as I love Drake, I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's what he can do.
And I do believe, though, in some sense that he was talking afterwards saying he has football speed. I do believe in football speed. Like, there's just a different speed sometimes guys can get to when they're on the field versus when they're just running a straight line. But we'll see. Like I said, it's going to largely depend on the situation he gets put into. He has to be really smart about which team he chooses in NFL, in free agency. So I don't know. I just would caution people by thinking that he's going to have some great NFL career. I don't know. The odds are definitely against him.
Yep.
All right. Also, yesterday, Board of Regents meeting. We finally got to see Zac Alley a little bit out there. One thing that surprised me, Brent stayed out there the entire time at Pro Day. Most of his staff was out there. We saw Zac Alley. We saw Bill Bedenbaugh was out there quite a bit. And you finally got to George, the reveal. We kind of made a guess at what he would get paid and whether that might be an indicator of if he was going to be the play caller or not. But it was kind of about what we thought pay-wise.
Yeah, $850,000 next year, goes up $50,000 each year after that 3-year contract. So, I think it's probably about the right number. Ted Roof was getting paid about $1.1 million last year. Obviously, more experience, and I do think Ted was, by definition, the play caller. I think the $850,000 tells you though that Zach's going to play a pretty big key role in what they're doing defensively. I mean, it's the most of any defensive assistant on staff right now. I mean, it's more than Todd Bates. It's more than Jay Valai, who has every single title. Miguel Chavis, obviously, and then Brandon Hall, who I think is getting underpaid at $500,000. But I definitely think that is an indication that Zac Alley is going to have a huge hand in what they're doing on defense.
And notable as well. I'm sorry, Josh, if you wanted to chime in there.
No, I was going to ask George and you all in general if you think you can read into that. Like, is that any sort of indicator of what his role is? What his, is that the sign of, okay, if anybody's calling plays on this defense, it's not named Brent, it's him.
Yes. I don't think he'll be calling plays, but I do think he's going to be, in certain times maybe helping run practice. Maybe
very influential.
Yes.
It was interesting because Eddie and I were watching, and I kind of nudged and I said, look over there at Brent and Zach. And they were like literally mirroring each other, doing like some type of technique. I don't know if it was, your first step, when the ball is snapped.
There was a little bit of a coaching workshop.
It was a clinic going on
yeah.
over there. And then Jay Valai walked up and they were still going. And it was just like, there's a combine going here where people's future are at stake, and Brent's over there being a football coach with Zac Alley. It's what you wanted to see. I mean, I was impressed by it.
I also wonder, too, with the new head comms in the players' helmets, if this would maybe indicate that Zac Alley would be, I would assume Danny Stutzman's going to be the one with the communications on defense. Is Zac Alley the one talking to him, or is it
Billy
Brent?
Bowman too, right?
Well, only one.
Three?
Well, no, only one player gets it. I'm pretty sure.
I thought you could have three. Okay.
No. Only one player gets it.
On each side of the ball.
On each side of the ball. So it would be the quarterback and typically middle linebacker. I wonder if Alley's going to be in the headset as the linebackers coach and co-defensive coordinator, or if Brent's going to be on it. And I would think it'd be Alley because Brent's down there screaming at him anyways.
Yeah.
Now, I do know Alley was on the sideline most of his time as a defensive coordinator, he did not go up in the booth. I wonder if that changes at OU. I don't know. But yeah.
So that would mean that somebody would have to go up, right? Because Ted was up.
Yeah, Ted was up.
Is there a certain number that you have to have upstairs?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, but I think you can only have so many on the side.
I would just think Brent would want somebody to be the eye in the sky, and I'm just guessing that's going to be Alley.
It could change to Brandon Hall, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's done it before. He was upstairs first year, I believe, and then he came down last year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people forget he was the defensive coordinator at Troy. I mean, so he would have the experience to play that kind of role.
And they like to have.
Did
Chavis
you guys
and Bates
hear?
down.
Oh, I'm sorry, George.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to ask if you guys had heard Neil Brown talking about their experience going through the bowl game when they had it as one of the bowls that had that, the headsets in. And they were just talking about like working on it the weeks ahead and kind of figuring out like, okay, this is too much. This is too little. Like what's the right amount of input so you're not overloading your guy while he's on the field.
Yeah, I think that's why Seth was so not, I guess, adamant, but so against it in a way when he was asked about it in San Antonio before the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, and I think
it's a lot to throw at, and then obviously the situation at quarterback with Oklahoma, putting a freshman back there.
In the system they ran last year where they're going so fast, I'm sure that they had the signals down already. You don't want to confuse Jackson. I do think, though, that moving forward with the communications in the helmet could help someone like Jackson where they're in a tough spot or whatever, and you can have somebody in his ear right before the play kind of talking them through whatever the play is or whatever they're seeing. I think that could be beneficial for a young quarterback who maybe doesn't have as much experience as somebody like Dylan.
And I wonder if it might not lead to...
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I wonder if it might not lead to maybe increased scoring, because if you don't have coaches, getting you up to the time the ball is snapped in different plays, like on offense, you're probably going to have to call a play and then I would guess, have a couple of audibles you could go to. Whereas on defense, you've got to cut it off at the same time you cut off the offense, whenever that point is. I need to read up on it more, obviously, but if you don't have coaches adjusting it, I was watching something with Tom Brady the other day, and he was talking about how it's become such a chess match in the NFL and why quarterbacks are struggling so much is because the only quarterbacks that can have success are guys like him and Aaron Rodgers that can play that chess game along with the defensive coordinator on the other side. So it's now going to be more about college quarterbacks playing chess with defensive coordinators than it is offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators going against each other. That's how I envision it kind of changing the way things work and the way the game flow happens.
Yeah, and for what you're talking about, Kerry, I've read that it's 15 seconds is what the current plan is. That's when they'll cut the audio off before the snap. So, and
15 seconds before the end of the play clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, anything at that point is just the players making adjustments, that kind of stuff. But he talked, again, it was a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sure I'm going to miss some parts. But he basically said by the end of it, would basically whittle it down to, okay, these are your hots. This is our one audible out of this. If they show you this exact front, that kind of stuff. It was very like A-B. And then everything else, he was like, I didn't want to get, okay, if this linebacker comes down, you're looking for this. He goes, I knew if it got too much, it just kind of froze him. And there wasn't any ability to just, hit for him to read it and see it.
And God, I hope this isn't like NIL where they expect it to work this way and then everybody comes up with some alternate way to do it. Like, are you in the helmet until 15 seconds and then you go to hand signals from the sidelines? Like, is there a way to keep people from doing that? Signaling? I mean, there's probably not.
I've read a lot of people that think that there's no way with the speed that the offenses run at that the defenses are going to be able to just do away with hand signals. I still think you're going to see that stuff.
Yeah, and you're not going to, unless you want to get rid of people up in the box. I mean, that's probably the only way you're going to control it. That's never going to happen.
Never.
So, yeah, that'll be something. I mean, we'll talk a lot more to the players and the coaches about that during the spring.
Hopefully we get to talk to Jackson about it.
Yeah.
Jackson and Danny, because I would assume it's going to be Jackson and Danny are the two guys.
Yeah.
I would, yeah. That seems to be almost a given. By the way, want to remind you guys that this whole first segment has been our Enjoy Fresh Perspective Look Around. We are always happy to talk to Mr. Radosevich about and hear him brag about how well he can see things.
Enjoy Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the Unofficial 40 listeners, they're giving $400 off LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com, use the promo code U40 in the letter N, JOY, withme.com, and use promo code U40 for $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
And the vision will be good because hopefully we'll be able to get out there and see some things after spring break. They usually do let us go out and have a photo, video session, and that's always great just to see some of the new guys. But the thing I like about the spring break and the way it works out is these guys, especially the young guys, they're not going to be, kind of slowing down practice. They're going to be expected to be caught up with everybody else. So it'll look a little bit smoother, I'm sure, by the time we get out there. What happens this week, I don't know if you guys have heard, Josh, if you've heard any scuttlebutt about things, but like George was saying, we didn't have a lot of time to ask certain questions of Brent during, like position changes or guys like Woody Washington that might be playing some safety along with corner, and how that looks, but certainly something we'll be getting into once we're allowed in practices.
I think the biggest thing this week is we get the roster, and I think people sometimes look a little bit too much into how much guys weigh, but I think it does give you a sense of maybe some guys that could step up in roles. Like I went through and just looked at, how much some guys have gained weight. Kip Lewis is up 8 pounds. He's up to 214 pounds.
That's good.
At linebacker, you wonder, can he get up to 220 by next season? Another one, Josh, the offensive line, there's quite a few guys that have had some weight changes. Troy Everett's up 11 pounds to 305. Logan Hallen's up 22 pounds to 306 pounds. That's a huge jump for two guys that, I don't think Logan Hallen will start, but I know that they really like him.
I muted myself. So, yeah, caught it almost as I did it. But no, I think Hallen's huge because that was always the question with him. Is he going to be able to put on the weight he needs to? And that's the kind of guy that might allow you to say, okay, Michael Tarquin and Spencer Brown, you're going to compete at right tackle. And Logan Hallen's going to, if they like where he's at, they can make him Jacob Sexton's number 2. Then he can just work at left tackle. He can get, the comfort there, which is, to my understanding, that's the only place he's worked. Obviously being a young guy, they weren't trying to throw too much at him. But it also allows Tarquin to really not have to go bounce back and forth between left and right. He can really be that right-sided guy if they feel as good about Jake Sexton as we think they do on the left side. So it starts to help you build not only depth, but just some real clear lines of, okay, this guy's here, that guy's there. And in a real game, it may be a deal where, okay, Jacob Sexton gets hurt and it's the first quarter. Michael Tarquin's still probably the likely guy to come in front of a guy like Logan Hallen, but it's not certain. And so, again, I thought guys, as someone who's been very open about questions along the offensive line this year, I thought the numbers, if we can take those at face value, I thought were really good for the offensive line. I thought it showed a lot of positive moves. Jacob Sexton's down a little bit, maybe a little lighter. I think that might help him.
Yeah, he lost 10
So,
pounds.
I liked what I saw, yeah.
Another one, Eugene Brooks, 334 pounds. That's crazy. True freshman, that big, 6'3", 334 pounds. That's a big dude. Also, Fabici Weewu. He's at what, 325? It says here on North Texas's page he was at 316 last year, so he's up to. I really like him.
And he looked good. I didn't.
He looked really good on Wednesday.
You can tell Eugene has some bad weight here and there, and that'll get better. But like Weewu, is that right?
I think it's Weewu.
Just Weewu.
Yeah.
He looks the part. That to me was the thing about all those transfers. They're all big dudes. Spencer Brown, the kid from USC,
Tarquin.
Mm-hmm. He's the biggest of all of them. He just you're not sure if he wants to be here. Not the way his interviews went, but yeah, they all looked good. I want to see him out there, but if it could have lessened my concerns seeing those guys walk in, it did.
Yeah. How about the defensive line if we want to stay on weights? Because they only have one guy over 300 pounds, and it's DJ Terry on the defensive line. I'm not concerned about it yet, but this time last year they had, I think, 3 guys over 300 pounds. And I think Jaden Jackson will get there. He's at 295. Oh, yeah. I think they want Devon Sears to get there. Grayson Halton hasn't been able to put on as much weight as I think they'd hope. I think he's at 284, if I remember correctly. But that is one area that I don't think they're maybe as big as they were a year ago. But they might be more. I think they're more talented. I just don't know.
They're just younger.
Oh, yeah. What that was something somebody asked me. It was like they went in the board chat this week. It was like positional preparedness for the SEC, and I ranked the defensive line. It was 1 to 10. I said something like 5 or 6. And I was like, that feels so negative because I love the direction of the position. But, I mean, if you're talking about walking on a football field right now, they're not there. I mean, and to me, unless they go in the portal, it's going to be hard to change that much. And I know from everything I'm hearing, they love Jaden Jackson. They're super excited about him. Obviously, we know about David Stone's upside. And Nigel Smith is, again, he's an interesting guy. And I'd be kind of interested in what you guys saw of him after a couple months on campus. Where is his weight at? Because to me, he feels like a guy that's going to be 280 before he knows what happened. And you're going to end up inside getting that big that fast.
Who's that?
Nigel Smith.
Oh, yeah. What's he listed as?
I saw him walking around a lot yesterday.
It says here 6'4", 255.
And that was kind of one thing that was interesting about the combine is all those guys were there. It was.
Yeah, and I will say that these numbers, I think most of them are updated, but a guy like PJ Adebawore, it says he's still 240, and that's just not true from my understanding. I think he's closer to 260, and we saw him yesterday too. He looks massive, and he always looks massive, but he definitely has put on some weight. So I wouldn't say these are exact numbers just yet, and obviously these fluctuate, but it does kind of give you a sense on some of these, but they have David Stone, Grayson Halton, Champ Sanders, and Marcus Strong all around 282 to 285. And I would assume they want to get at least half those guys up to 290 by next year. And then Devon Sears is at 289. And I think they would like to get him up to 295. At least.
I don't know why, but he's kind of my Jalil Farouk on the defensive side where I just don't want to give up on him. But I just think that Grayson Halton has something. And I know he's been in the transfer portal. He's flashed, but
Halton's been in the portal?
I don't think he's been in the portal.
He said that he was entering the portal at one point, I'm pretty sure, and just never went anywhere. Just came back.
I don't remember.
Maybe I'm crazy.
I don't remember that at all.
Bob doesn't remember it either, so it didn't happen.
Bob just said, you're an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. if Bob doesn't remember it didn't happen.
I'm just confused.
But I agree with you, Kerry. I see a lot of Halton could do a lot of the things that Jacob Lacey did for OU. He's very athletic. He's a good pass rusher inside. Little light, but so was Lacey. I got to think Lacey last year was playing 280, 285 most of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him look really good in the spring game by the time he gets here. Mm-hmm. Okay, George, I know before Bob comes in and steals your spot, women not the best showing in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, they stunk.
It was not pretty.
They did not play well, and then Iowa State kind of got their ass beat yesterday by Texas. I think Texas is really good. I mean, I know OU beat them twice.
Refs helped one time.
Yeah, I just and OU just played fantastic in Austin, but I think that that's just OU though. OU's very streaky. They can get on runs and shoot the ball really well. They just did not shoot well, and then Iowa State. OU also doesn't play the best defense at times, and so I think that Iowa State took advantage of that. But I still OU's going to be, I think, either a 4 or 5 seed, kind of depending on whose bracketology you look at. But
they cannot play at home because of gymnastics.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that
Big
either.
12 had moved the championship thing to Norman. I had no idea.
Yeah, I honestly think they're going to be a 5 seed anyway, so it won't matter.
Yeah.
But it seems
I
like
think that's
poor,
probably right.
It seems like poor planning.
Yeah, well, I guess the Big 12 can, stick it to OU anytime they want. So.
Yeah. Why? I don't know.
They're not like.
I don't know if that's the
I
Big
think
12
they're rewarding them, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the Big 12. So I wonder.
Yeah, I
if,
guess so.
I mean, honestly,
The
gymnastics thing will probably outdraw a regional.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because they know that because the OU's in it that it'll sell really.
I also
well.
thought women's basketball was eventually going to go back to not doing the at-home sites like that.
I think it's too expensive.
Yeah, they're not going to be.
I know
they
discussed
lose
sites.
too much money. I think.
Yeah.
And you have, your traditional powers, South Carolina or LSU or wherever, that they'll sell the place out and it'll be a really successful event.
I mean, if the NCAA really want to be gangsters, they just make Iowa barnstorm all over the country throughout the tournament.
Just raise ticket prices for Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. Bob liked that one.
Also, before I get out of here,
Yeah.
we didn't touch on it, but Todd Bates and Bill Bedenbaugh also got raises.
Yeah, $1 million assistant.
Yes, Bill Bedenbaugh. He got a huge bump. So good for him. I know that
Maybe he'll smile.
there's been talk about Alabama came after him. I know schools went after Bates as well. So I think that those both, because they both got raises back in January, and then 2 months later they got raises again, which is a pretty good hint that they were like, hey, teams are coming after us.
By the way, how crazy A&M stealing Trev Alberts from Nebraska?
I think it's the most out of the blue, crazy, weird. I saw Sean. I think it was Sean Callahan.
Has any money, come out on that? Because it had to be.
I just saw the
Brinks
payout.
I just saw the report that basically they're going
They have to
A&M's
pay
going to
$4
pay
million to get him
$4.5
out of there.
million or $4 million buyout, which for an athletic director, I know Dan Wolken tweeted it, but I thought it was pretty funny. It's like it almost seems insane that a school would be paying a buyout for an athletic director, but at the same time, it's like if there's a school that's going to do it, you could probably guess who that would be. The whole thing's weird.
Am I wrong, or is Trev Alberts a little bit of a choir boy?
I have no
for
idea.
Texas A&M,
I have no idea.
or is he just a straight up killer behind the scenes?
This might answer your question. I saw Sean Callahan tweeted out earlier this morning. Our buddy from Nebraska runs their site for On3. Basically said that he had been talking to people high up within the athletic department at Nebraska that are completely blown away. People that would be in the know of Trev Alberts. And so it kind of sounds like he went behind their back.
Yeah.
He just re-signed too. They signed him to an extension.
Yeah, and January, it took effect January of 2023 or something.
It's crazy. It just seems so, I don't know.
It's out of the blue. It's bizarre.
Weirdest fit ever.
Nebraska's had so many different ADs, it feels like, in recent history.
But A&M has too. I mean,
well, and there's a reason both those programs have not been exactly super successful.
It's obvious they want a football AD.
Yeah.
And that's what they feel like Trev Alberts
Where was
is.
Alberts from before Nebraska?
He was at their UNL Kearney or whatever.
Yeah, he was working within the system, I think, at Nebraska. But he's a Nebraska guy. I don't know.
Nebraska,
it's just insane to
legend.
Me. Yeah.
Huh.
Mel Kiper's all-time favorite player.
Yeah, that's what started the rant, the Colts rant.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember that GM's name now.
Yeah, he got fired because on that one, Kiper was right.
So, I mean, just continues to be craziness when A&M is involved. But, hey, it's still – I look at it this way. Whether it's Ole Miss or Miami or Texas A&M, there's still a lot more people out there making desperate moves that aren't paying off. We'll see with Ole Miss. We'll see with – I mean, I wouldn't say Oregon's made any desperate moves. They've just been good with NIL.
Oregon's a unique case because they have the money and they're always going to have the money.
Yeah.
And they have been a historically somewhat successful program. So they're different than an Ole Miss to me, where I don't know where exactly the money's coming from and if it's going to continue to come. And it's also not a program that's been just historically great.
I think that Oregon's really going to be interesting too to see if they can continue the type of success that they've had, because I think that they have been able to benefit a lot from playing just, for the most part, lesser schools in the Pac-12, and now they're entering the Big Ten, where they line up with a lot of the things that some of those top teams do, but I think it's just a much different kind of animal than playing whoever, Washington State or whoever, every weekend.
Yeah. By the way,
or Cal, how about Stanford, or
how about
whoever?
Saban he continues to repeat the NIL drove me out of coaching.
I think he's probably a little bit.
Is that Capitol Hill?
I think he's
hyperbole.
He's a little bit bitter, I think would probably be the way to say it. Because I don't think that he's ready to be done coaching, but I think he's also at the point where he's just like, F it. I don't want to mess with that stuff anymore.
Here's the thing about all that. And Nick Saban's the greatest of all time, but like he can sit there and say that it's not changing. It's not like they're not going to, like Nick Saban saying that is not all of a sudden going to change the way that any of this is going.
But it's also one of those deals that I kind of get where he's coming from, just in terms of.
I agree with him to a certain extent.
Essentially, what I hear him saying
the traditional side of me that, like, the millions and millions and millions of dollars that are being passed around in not just college football, but college athletics in general, it does take away from it. But at the same time, I guess I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth that, like, I support the player that I think he should be able to get some of this money.
Yeah.
I mean, the easiest thing is just making him an employee. I mean, just get it over with.
The idea of Nick Saban speaking to the sanctity of college athletics and amateurism is the biggest crock of shit I've ever seen. Like, stop. The man was known as Slick Nick for like 20 years, and now he's the papal saint. Like, stop. Like, you're not. You weren't worried about the whole man and the perfect football player and the off the field. Like, you may have done that, but you were about winning football games. Like, that was your driving force in your life. Don't say anything else about it. And for a guy that made hundreds of millions of dollars on basically the backs of these guys to be like, oh, well, this is ruined sports because these kids want to get paid for their work. Like, man, I don't want to make Kerry edit here. So just piss off with that stuff. Like, I'm not hearing any of that.
I mean,
and then on top of it, like the sport is falling apart, but you're going to go join the show that is basically its biggest waving flag of look how great college football is. But the sport's falling apart. Stop with that. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's the biggest hypocritical piece to this is there was always stuff going on behind the scenes at Alabama. Saban just shielded himself from it, and he knew it was going on, did nothing to stop it. And now this isn't about how things have changed. This is about college coaches have lost a lot of the control that they once had because they could bench someone and sit them down or discipline them and it not affect their wallets. You know, they still were getting the money underneath the table and all that stuff, but they could use that to control the players. Now, the players have control, and the coaches don't like it, and Saban doesn't like it. And look, I understand he's coached for a long time. He has a way that he does things. We've talked about that here. Like, some of us like change, some of us don't. Saban hates change, and he doesn't want to deal with learning a new way to be a head football coach in the NCAA. And he's old.
Sounds like I'm pretty similar to Nick Saban. That's a pretty good company to be in.
I didn't want to make it out like I was being too obvious I was talking about you.
Me and Nick, we got some very common
Although
ideologies.
You excel at social media, and he doesn't even have social media. So
does he not?
Well, I bet he doesn't
Saban
now.
Not do it? Yeah, probably not. I would imagine he hasn't logged on to Twitter in a while, and I don't blame him.
Also, just some quick breaking news. I'm about to tweet this out, but Gavin Marshall officially in the transfer portal.
There you go.
No, not surprised considering he was not on the spring roster.
Right.
Wasn't mentioned.
And they brought in two kickers, Liam Evans and Tyler Keltner.
But
Jinx.
Shout out Pete Nakos. He's the one that informed me of that.
Very good.
On 3 Superstar.
Very good.
All right, George. It's been fun. I'm sorry that Eddie kicked you off the podcast yesterday, or the YouTube show.
I'm pretty sure I rose my hand and said I will
literally
sit this one out.
invited him, and
yeah,
he
I was
said
about to
no.
say, I sat
down.
myself out on that. That was all.
I just like continuing this rivalry that's brewing between you two.
I don't think there's.
I don't think there's a rivalry at all. I'm sure Eddie and I will share some St. Patrick's beers this weekend.
Very excited about that. It's always been St. Patrick's Day for some reason. It's always been the weekend of the Under Armour event.
Oh yeah.
And so this year it's not. And the Big 12 tournament, it's going to be good. This is one of my favorite weeks I think of the year with the conference tournaments going on.
Well, you know what's crazy is Bob Prisbillo now joins us and Josh McCuistion disappears.
Yeah, that was timely, wasn't it?
By the way, Bob is... I felt bad for you last night, Eddie, because you stayed around here all day. You just wanted to go see some baseball. And by the time the top of the first was over, the game was basically over.
They played so bad in the first inning last night.
Was it 7-0?
I mean, it wasn't even the first inning. It was the entire game. It was a complete shit effort.
But it was 7-0 before OU even got to bat.
Yeah, well, it was 7-0 before the second out was
and
made.
it was 7-0 OU softball in the bottom of the first.
Yeah, I think, Bob, you got the
Port
better side of the stick
Harlingen
on this.
Port
Port
Harlingen.
Harlingen.
And it was a great crowd last night,
Boy.
too, over at Eldell. It just
Sydney Sanders, man, she's taking the reins of home run
This
champ.
is crazy.
8 over 10 in March,
8
right?
home runs, 19
We're only
RBIs
13 days in.
since Love's Field opened.
That's crazy.
Well, and you knew when she transferred, like, this is a really good young player, but she comes into a team full of Titans and just kind of finds a way. Now she's, I don't know, I look at like it's her ascension time.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked to Patty about this, because, I mean, obviously we've asked Patty, like, every single game since this run has happened. She's like, this is what I saw. This is what I envisioned. This is why I went after her. And it took her a little while to kind of get out of her own head. But now she's playing exactly the way that we believed when we brought her here in the first place. And the one thing that Patty mentioned when we asked her about a couple weeks ago is the patience that Sid will show at the plate. Like, she'll be down 0-2 an account and work her way to a walk. Or, like, she'll purposely take a couple pitches to get an idea of the umpire's strike zone or what the pitcher is doing, and then she's locked in and just taking off. Because, like, when she's trying to describe home runs, like, I don't know, I'm just seeing it really, really well. But when she described her approach at the plate, you understand why she is doing so well.
Okay, a couple of things. I know you in the war room, you kind of played it out like not really anything to be concerned about, but Kenzie Hansen.
Just sick.
Just sick.
Yep, just sick.
And then how are we doing at shortstop right now?
I think they're going to roll with Jennings until there's a reason not to. Again, when we mentioned, the first loss, they got to fix a bunch of things. There wasn't that panic mode whatsoever. And how they played against Iowa State, especially Saturday, the second game Saturday and Sunday, that felt like the OU team, as Patty phrased it, Sooner style. That felt like a team that was finding its groove. And strange enough, the first game against Tarleton State wasn't that. It was 3-0 going to the bottom of the fifth. I joked on Twitter, I go, we're in the bottom of fifth. I can't believe we are. But then they put 5 in the run rule, and then the second game was a lot like you would expect when you're playing that type of level of opponent. But they seem like mentally they figured a lot of stuff out in the last week. Now going to Texas Tech will be the next challenge.
Now, is that really the next challenge, or I mean, what is the big series coming up that everybody's pointing to?
Definitely next weekend with Baylor, and that'll be the Friday game that's in Oklahoma City at USA Hall of Fame Stadium. But Patty's concerned about Texas Tech because of the elements. Mm-hmm. It's going to get cold here, right? It's like the 80s we have today are going to be long gone. So now you're going to West Texas and dealing with the wind and whatever else is going there. And Texas Tech, I mean,
good record, beat a bunch of bad teams.
Right, good record, 21-5, really nice record. Hadn't really played the teams that kind of scare you, but they can hit. And if you add the wind and the elements there, and if your pitchers aren't at bringing their A game to Lubbock, when a lot of these pitchers haven't been to Lubbock, we heard like when Patty was talking about Lubbock, you can see Kelly Maxwell's like, yeah, you're right, because she's been there. But someone like a Kirsten Deal hasn't been in Lubbock. And that might be one of those moments where she's going to have to get used to these type of environments and still be able to succeed.
Speaking of Kelly Maxwell, it seems like here the prevailing thought over the last couple of days has been she's turned it on a little bit in the circle for Oklahoma. That's your number one right now?
Just gone next level. The work she's doing with Jen Rocha, the pitching coach, you're seeing it in spades. I mean, Kelly kind of surprised us all when we go back to the first week of the season or so and said, I never watched film, but OSU. And like she's just in the film room with Rocha.
Still just insane.
Insane to think that was a national
they have that literally available. I don't know why you wouldn't use it.
But then she did the 7-inning complete game Saturday, going almost 130 pitches, which I thought was pivotal because you have the 6-person staff. But like if you need a big out, you need a big performance, who you lean toward. Kelly delivered that, and then yesterday the 5-inning no-hitter, first no-hitter of the season for the Sooners. She is definitely like finding that next step.
Now, to me it's been kind of interesting because a year ago, Nicole May pretty much cruised throughout the season. I mean, she had the runs per game. She was number one in the country. Mm-hmm. It was easy for her the whole way. She comes out this year and she has a rough go of it. Like, do you see Patty kind of forcing her back into tough situations to see if she can kind of recover and regroup a little bit?
I actually do. I'm not saying they're worried about her confidence, but I think they want to see her in a tight spot come through once again. She worked her way out of the second game against Tarleton State. She had second and third with one out. We're like, what's going on? Kelly just threw a no-hitter. You've given up 2 hits within the first 3 batters, but she got out of it. That was one of those games, again, like you pitch 3 innings because you're up big. So, you didn't really learn too much. I think she'll get the call probably Saturday. I think you go Maxwell Friday, maybe May Saturday, Deal Sunday, or you flip-flop Deal in May. But, yeah, I think they want to make sure that she can still bring it when it matters most.
Is that is that talked about much with Patty about just managing not just the innings for those guys, but kind of the psyche of that staff?
I think so, and I think we're almost getting to a point where maybe a closer starts to become a deal. That's one of my midweek questions for Patty I want to get around to. When you have this many arms, are you at a point now where you start saying you might not be starting Carly Keeney, but you need to be ready like every 6th and 7th inning, because I think this is a role you might flourish in. Or maybe Nicole May becomes someone that might be really good like in a closer spot. When you've got 6 arms, you have that ability to do things a little bit differently than what we've seen in softball throughout the years. We know we're well past the days of Paige Parker throwing her arm out. Now it's about how can you change and evolve and put them in the best spot possible.
Eddie, baseball-wise, obviously not a great day to start Bedlam yesterday. But
no, they got their ass kicked.
What is the main focus now for the baseball team? Is it pitching? Hitting seems to be not the problem here.
I think it'd be an overreaction to say that like they should fire everybody and make everybody get off scholarship or the partial scholarships they're on. But
is somebody saying that? Because I want to meet that person.
I'm sure that there's people out there that are. Just check in on a game thread every once in a while, and it's a wild place. But they are coming off of a great week, and particularly a great weekend. You swept I think a decent Central Florida team. I don't think it's the number 2 RPI team like they were coming in. Small sample size here early on in the season, but a really good start in Big 12 play. A weird schedule this week with the game tonight down in Arlington against UTA. And then they're staying down in the Metroplex to take on TCU over the weekend in a 3-game series. But I asked a little bit about that last night. Like, why the hell would you have Bedlam and then turn around and have to play 5 games this week? And I think it's basically just a product of you got to get to 54 somehow. Mm-hmm. And there's only so many weeks that you can fit these games in. So I suppose you'd rather do it now than later on in the year when you'd have to play 5 games. But I think more than anything, last night it could have been, Directional State University, but because it was Oklahoma State, it hit a little bit different. And I think it's become a common theme on Tuesdays when they've played these midweek Bedlam games that they get their ass kicked.
I saw, and look, that's not uncommon. The year OU's played well and gone to regionals, gone to super regionals, even gone to Omaha. Like, there were struggles throughout the season just figuring out the pitching staff lineup.
Well, and Tuesdays or Wednesdays, whenever you play your midweek game, are just so tough because, I think Skip's philosophy, he wants to get some of these guys in there that, probably aren't going to be turned to during weekend play. And you want to be able to get somebody like a Will Karsten some innings. But at the same time, you can't throw him out there and him only record a third of an inning. And, last night was really, really bad. And OSU played well. Like, they had 17 hits. I mean, sometimes that's going to happen. Kind of got to dust yourself off and get back on the horse tonight, though. They really need to win UTA because it's one of those games that you get nothing out of it. It's going to hurt your RPI. Mm-hmm. And if you lose, it's really going to hurt your RPI. But, for me right now, I think the focus should just be winning weekends in Big 12 play and position yourself in the, that middle tier, the top tier of the standings. And if you do that, you're going to be in pretty good shape to make a regional and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, it's been good, but not it's probably somewhere between good and really good, I guess. Like, coming off the weekend that they had, scored 29 runs against Central Florida. That's a really good weekend. And the way that they did it in the second game on Saturday and the doubleheader and Sunday, those were really impressive wins.
Who's starting to separate at the plate offensively?
That's probably their strength right now is the lineup. I think that, obviously Easton Carmichael's coming off last week. He hit .617, won Big 12 co-player of the week. Jackson Nicholas has had I almost said Jackson Arnold. Jackson Nicholas has had a really good start to the year. Spikerman's had a really good start to the year. Michael Snyder's been awesome. Like last night, he's been great at third base. He's leading the team with 23 RBIs, and he has an error that cost him a run last night. So they've been pretty damn good offensively. I think that you want to continue to get Carter Frederick at bats because I think he's going to be a guy at some point, whether it be in the DH role or somewhere in the outfield. You certainly don't want to take, what that outfield is right now with Spikerman and center, and then Kendall Pettis and Bryce Madron. Very, very good outfield. A lot of really good speed. But, I was telling somebody last night that as much as I love Kendall Pettis, I can't remember the last time that he came up in like a big plate appearance and got a hit. And, if you're going to have to maybe trade a little bit of defense and left for somebody that can produce offensively, maybe you make that here in about a month or so. I really don't know what they're going to do. And I don't know if you can just count on the Scott Mudler kid to continue to produce offensively. And at some point, Carmichael's going to have to really kind of take over the catcher role because you obviously want to keep his bat in the lineup.
Now, any last thing for me, any kind of, I don't know, development's not the right word, but any progress in the chaos department?
Yes and no. They had 4 steals in the first game. Like the first game that they won, the first game on Saturday in the doubleheader, that was a product of the chaos. Mm-hmm. You pinch run, Carmichael walks. You pinch run, Jason walk. He's still second base, and then he scores from second on basically a throwing error. But it was a product of his speed on the base pass. I asked Skip about it last week, going into might have been before they went to Vegas, where they played like shit. Yeah. But
so
they just don't have as much speed as they've had in past years.
Yeah.
So I think that, they're still trying to figure that out. But if you hit the ball like they are, I think they're still probably top. I haven't checked this week, but I think they should be probably still top like 20, top 25 in doubles per game.
Yeah.
They're hitting the ball really well. You just need to continue to develop some guys that you can really depend on out of the bullpen. And, I think the Witherspoon twins are going to be really good. Carter Campbell's still going to be a guy. Carson Atwood's still going to be a guy. So I don't know. It's kind of a wait and see mode and see how they get through this weekend. If you go down to TCU and take 2 or 3, I think that's like you could even add in the OSU loss on Tuesday and you go, oh, that was an incredible week. So I don't know. It's still rather early in terms of making wholesale statements about what they are, but I think they're progressing in the right direction. Tuesday night was a gut punch, though.
Great crowd, too, right?
It was awesome.
Great weather, great crowd.
Yeah, I know. Like the easiest joke out there is you got people showing up for these men's sports and they shit down their leg. Constant letdowns. But yeah, it was kind of humbling, I guess, in a way, to see the way that they were it was pretty thorough what OSU did to them.
All right. Great catching up with baseball. Josh has just sat down, which means it's time to talk hoops.
Absolutely.
Bob, it's been quite a week. I mean, you don't often see a head coach come out and defiantly deny rumors about him in coaching searches or coaching rumor mills. But Porter felt like that's what he had to do. And then right before we did the Hoops Report yesterday, you were on a Zoom with him. He was in Kansas City getting ready for today's game. It starts at 2 o'clock, so an hour away now.
Yep.
But more denials that he has any dealings with DePaul.
Yeah, because, I mean, when we asked, last month, I felt pretty confident that whatever might have been there wasn't there now, but let's see how Porter reacts when I bring it up to him. And then that wasn't enough. It's almost like the interest even increased more after the initial denial. And you could just see, kind of get fed up with it. And it obviously reached a boiling point on Sunday night, Monday morning, when it's just being flat out said he is the next head coach for DePaul. And it's like, wait a minute. You're going into the Big 12 tournament. You're going into the NCAA tournament. You can't have any sort of distraction like this. That's not based in any fact. It's just being thrown out there. And so he felt the need, just put it down once and for all. You can see him getting a little testy, like, stop asking me about this. I'm only looking forward to what we're doing in Kansas City and what we got going on with Selection Sunday and the NCAA tournament.
I think for OU fans, too, there's a little bit of PTSD with the way that the
for
Riley
me,
stuff
absolutely.
went down.
The fact that was on a Zoom,
yeah,
and he's on there saying that I have no interest, I haven't talked
to
anybody.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just like, oh, shit, we're back to this again.
But, I mean, as adamant as he has been here over the last, certainly the last 48 hours, I mean, you would have to be an absolute crazy person to leave now.
I mean,
it's like you can't go back on this shit.
He did it last year. The last year when we asked about Notre Dame, he was even stronger with his words. But now he's come out even multiple times. Like, people just have this idea that whatever's happened since he's arrived in Norman hasn't clicked between either his side or the OU side or a combination of both in these 3 years. And they're both, like, looking for a way out. And instead of, like, listening to his words and trying to understand what his passion is to trying to get it going, they just keep looking for all the reasons as to why it's not working and why the change has to be made.
There's a couple of things here, and one is, I feel like the fans have really shown up for the most part this year. They've supported, they've provided a really good atmosphere in Lloyd Noble. Part two is they're going to Lloyd Noble, and I mean, say what you will, I just think that the fact that it's so apparent to fans of Oklahoma that basketball is not an important, its importance is way down the list of things at the University of Oklahoma. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing in a gym that, you can clearly tell from the moment you walk up to it that it was built in, decades ago.
I almost want to clip it. I was driving home Saturday for the first part of OU Texas, and Toby Rowland was just talking about the Moody Center, the Foster Pavilion with Baylor, and like, OU's got to get it right. I'm not going to misquote him, but he was like, this is what it's supposed to be like, and this is not what we have in Norman.
No, and the fact that Porter wasn't afraid to say we need a new arena from the moment he showed up here.
Yep.
Like, that just, like, he comes in from the outside. Like, we can look at Lloyd Noble and say, that's Lloyd Noble. A lot of great memories here.
Tubbs, Sampson.
Billy Tubbs,
exactly.
Kelvin Sampson. We went to Final Fours out of this place. You get complacent. And look, I understand you can't hurt the football program. It's like we were talking about this the other day, like just college basketball in general. There's so many people, like OSU's going through this right now. They don't want to spend a bunch of money to buy out Mike Boynton because they've got all these NIL concerns and facilities that they want to build. So it's like everybody puts basketball down on the list at football schools. And OU has done that for 30 years plus now. And at some point, I know the city thing and all that. It's a nice little alternate idea, but it's a lifeboat. It's a raft. It's throwing somebody a bone. It's at some point OU just has to say, look, if we want to be serious about basketball and we don't want to be seen as having all these poachable coaches, we need to show people with a commitment on campus to a new arena. And like I said, it doesn't need to be a $500,000 arena. I don't know what the Moody Center was. Or what Foster was, but they were like,
I think Foster was somewhere around 200.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I understand you still have master plans in the stadium that haven't been executed. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, how much do we care about basketball in Oklahoma?
And that's the sort of thing, you had.
Would we be talking about this, though, if they were like 35-2? Would the Lloyd Nobles thing, it wouldn't even be a thing, though? Or am I crazy?
I just think it's like, me fighting with you guys during the season about, what this team is, and it's like, you guys.
And I'm on board with the new
What I'm
arena.
saying is, I think people, the fan base, tends to get down and not care about basketball because it doesn't seem like the university, in their eyes, has really cared that much about it in the last 20 years.
I just
Eddie, do you
go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think? I think the conversation would still be happening. Do you think it would be coming from a different point? Like, say they are having that kind of year. Well, you got to build this arena to keep that kind of coach around. He's not going to stay at Lloyd Noble. He's going to go to Kentucky or wherever it may be.
I'm far past the idea of the Lloyd Noble Center is fine. They need a new arena. I don't know. I've always kind of been caught in between that. Like, this wouldn't be a thing if they were rolling right now. And I still think it's like lost in the entire spectrum of what this year has been, that this was a major success for where they are right now. And I know it's hard to accept that, but from where they're coming from, it's.
But what I'm saying is, I think more people would recognize that if they felt like basketball was really supported here.
Yeah, I just think that people just want to win.
Yeah, I mean,
at the end of the day, I don't know.
But how many arenas have you seen built where you're like, wow, that like, I remember like when A&M built Reed Arena, I was like, wow, that's a really cool arena. Like, that's so much better than Lloyd Noble.
Yeah, I mean, they're not enjoying
sucked.
particularly a bunch of success in College Station right now.
Yeah, I mean, not like Tech, but, Tech got Spirit Arena or whatever it is. It was United Foods or something in the beginning. Like, they built a new arena.
Sometimes I feel like the
Baylor
arena
built a new
thing has
arena.
become a scapegoat to not support the program. I understand
I'm not
what you're
saying
saying.
that at all. I'm just, I wish the support was stronger than it is, because I grew up a basketball guy.
I think that there are nights where it's really good, but I get it. Like, people were saying this about baseball last night. When you show up and then you get your teeth knocked out, it makes it hard to come back down.
Yeah, that Texas game did not help with OU basketball.
Texas is a better basketball team.
Well, what I'm saying is, it was one of the bigger matchups in that arena in years, and
I mean, Houston was fantastic.
Yeah.
Kansas was fantastic.
Houston was fantastic,
The crowds have
right?
been
But I'm
good.
saying Texas, it just didn't seem like the effort was there. It was
tied
felt like
with
they
10
didn't show
minutes
up.
left.
Yeah, it's just execution. It's not. I actually don't think it's been an effort issue entire, but sometimes their execution is just next level. Terrible.
They lack highly talented basketball players within the program. And maybe a new arena, maybe you would be able to get a couple of those
And then
guys.
who knows what the narrative of this last month would be if you weren't juggling John Hughley, Rivaldo Soares, and Javion McCollum.
And by the way,
dealing with
we
these
buried the lead because they're getting ready to play TCU. And look, I think most people think that they're in, but it's like, just get one more and you don't have to worry about it. When
You wouldn't have to
Selection
worry about
Sunday
it
comes.
at all. They're in.
But you're doing it, Bob, without two of your best players.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the big news that Porter announced yesterday.
Yeah, and Porter said, just for today, I think you read between the lines. Even if they won today and played Houston, Soares, Hughley, I wouldn't expect to be in the lineup. And that's just kind of the way the breaks have gone for them during this last month, which has seen them drop from like a 6 seed to maybe a 9 or 10. And I still think they're firmly in no matter what happens the rest of this weekend. I think what you would be scared about is if you somehow just fell into the last 4 in and you're playing in Dayton. And the difference of playing a Tuesday night in Dayton compared to a Thursday or Friday
With injuries.
Getting those extra days of rest for those guys would be massive.
Well, it'll be interesting to see exactly what this team, and I think at times
3-point game in Kansas City.
It was 21-3 Cougars.
Central Florida's come back.
But I think with this team, just when they've had guys that have been Suarez came back for that Oklahoma State game, but maybe you see a Darthard step up. Maybe you see
he's definitely done.
That's the only way that that's the only way that they can win.
They
today.
need Otega to come back. The
you get
Otega
to
from
step up.
second half in Bedlam has not shown up the rest of the way. We thought that'd be a turning point for him as to figuring out how he can still be effective, even if Suarez is going to be the starter. and instead he's kind of gone back south.
Back to
that has changed.
Back to 11-point game, 3 threes.
There you go.
Well, and Javian playing better is be really. And I mean, Uzan's been just non-existent. I mean,
he played well.
He was really good on
he
Saturday.
Played really well,
yeah.
and he needed that. The 12 points, 7 assists, only 1 turnover. It's exactly kind of bounce back that they needed from him. With Javion, this would be interesting. He played very well against the Frogs the first time, back when he wasn't just done from the grind. Like, he just looked so worn out. Can he turn back the clock a little now that Swords is out? When Swords is out, this needs to be McCollum's team. Can he do that again this afternoon?
And is he healthy enough to do that?
Yep.
We'll see. I did think the number that's out right now, it got bet up to 3.5. It was opened at 2 this morning. It's up to 3. I was kind of surprised by that. Like, in my brain, I go, oh, that's an automatic TCU play. But and as I say,
they think is point shaving this year, Temple.
Yeah.
Oh,
they took their games off the board on the final day of the regular season.
Interesting.
But we'll see. I mean, I would have thought it would be 5.5, something like that, without Suarez in the lineup. But if it's 3.5, you're basically talking about you make 2 or 3 more threes than you normally do, and all of a sudden maybe you're in a ball game. What?
Come on, Luke Northweather.
Come on, Luke.
If Luke Northweather makes 4 threes in the game today, they have a pretty good chance. They might. And here's the other thing. I just have no idea what TCU's doing. the drop off that they've had.
Because they dropped.
Too, yeah.
They didn't earn
Jamie
this
Dixon's
right.
Done
They
a terrible job.
completely dropped into this position.
It's crazy. I don't know how many times that you've entered the first day of the Big 12 tournament, not only with Kansas playing, you can get them as an underdog tonight to Cincinnati, which is truly, I would love for somebody to look it up. I bet Kansas hasn't been an underdog to a higher seeded team in the Big 12 tournament. I would venture to guess maybe ever. Truly.
Absolutely. I mean,
I'll watch just for that. I mean, just to see if Kansas could.
And Cincinnati shouldn't even be playing today. They were down by 16 yesterday to a team that fired their interim coach today.
and if Cincinnati wins, they're going to be, West will be banging that table saying we deserve to be in the tournament.
Yeah, it'll be.
They'll have 20 wins.
They'll have an argument, but I think that they'll probably be on the outside looking in. Maybe they end up in Dayton or something. But they are any of these bubble teams, not only in the Big 12 but across the country. You're getting some help today. Florida State is about 50 seconds away from knocking off Virginia Tech, who was kind of in that realm of bubble play. You want Notre Dame to play well against Wake Forest today.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's those games that I find to be really intriguing going into the weekend, and I'm super pumped for the Mountain West Conference tournament. It's going to be awesome.
All right.
There's 7 teams that could win it.
1-800-GAMBLING.
That's not a gambling. That's college basketball loving.
Good, really good stuff.
It's awesome.
Okay. Josh, you have received clemency. Is that what is clemency?
That's where you're you give to somebody that is a prisoner, right?
Clemency is an appeal for clemency.
It's just mercy.
Lenient.
Mercy.
Yeah, mercy.
Yeah.
Lenience.
Yeah. Because when somebody's on death row, the governor can give them clemency, right? To take them off.
I think that's just a pardon.
Stitt doesn't like doing that,
Well, he's had people descend
which is fun. It's fun. Bring back firing lines.
I'd choose that, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, over the cocktail that they give you nowadays, anything would be better.
Okay, Josh, a lot of stuff out there. You see, obviously, we've done a lot of Under Armour stuff. We've done Future Freaks on YouTube. But I see a lot of people announcing official visits and planning them right now. It seems to be that time of the year.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of that. I mean, Oklahoma, the 2 big weekends. And it's interesting. I was talking to some Texas guys and some A&M guys. Eddie and I were joking about this. Recruiting guys, we get together. It's like a knitting circle. It's kind of sad. We just kind of sit around and talk shop way too much. But talking to them, it's really lining up pretty well for Oklahoma because it sounds like Texas and A&M, their big primary weekends this summer are not going to really hit against Oklahoma too much. There's not going to be that, kids having to make a decision. They'll probably get to go see all 3. And that's particularly important this year where it seems like A&M, UT, and Oklahoma are hooking up on a lot of big-time battles. So I think that's going to be really pivotal to get these guys on campus. And it looks like what's starting to take shape, and I'm not entirely sure if it's planned on June 14th. I kind of want to talk to some people about this. But on June 21st is the Champ U barbecue, and that's lining up like Nate Roberts, Elijah Thomas, the commitment that was so good, Max Granville, Cole Breiler, Dawson Merritt. I mean, we can go down some of these lists, but there's a lot of big time guys that are going to be either part of Oklahoma's class or Oklahoma really wants them to be. They'll be there on June 21st. June 14th is probably going to be a smaller group, but it's starting to feel like maybe almost like that's a big man weekend or something, because like Michael Fasusi is going to be in that weekend. Ty Haywood is expected in that weekend. Floyd Boucard, one of the kind of defensive linemen that's kind of flying under the radar. He's actually a Canadian kid that played last year in Alabama. And now he's going to play this year at Miami Central. And Oklahoma seems to be making some inroads with him. So I'm wondering if maybe they're going to make that kind of like an O-line, D-line thing to the best reasonable possibility. I mean, if guys can't come in that weekend, then, hey, they're going to do what they can. But it feels like June 14th and June 21st are the two weekends people really need to be watching, because I think that's when you'll see, I mean, a good chunk of what remains of Oklahoma's 2025 class will be on campus on those two weekends.
Feel free to jump in, guys.
That is like I've talked to Josh so much.
I'm literally trying to think of something that we
What
haven't
else?
talked about. I know that we probably need to get into a little bit of the Under Armour stuff for people that maybe didn't watch the YouTube breakdown. And
by the way, go watch it. I think that's one of the cooler things that we've done since we started doing all this YouTube stuff. Just being able to see those guys, and have Josh talking about it, and just what's maybe something that you can look at, and we slow it down and rewind it and stuff.
I just wish that we had more time to be able to get video of some of the guys when we're not doing interviews. That's my only complaint, because it's like the same clips over and over and over again. But it was a great show.
Let's get another cameraman out there.
Well, I got everything that was there. It just like I wish that there was more time period where you could go do interviews.
Oh, okay.
And then go back over to the actual action.
Yeah.
Whatever. The offensive line stuff, they were all really, really good. I think that, just talking to some of those guys, we talked about it on the YouTube show, but Owen Hollenbeck is maybe the most Owen Hollenbeck of all time. Like if you put him in
he looks like if you could mold a Bill Bedenbaugh looking player out of clay, it would look like him.
Yeah. I made the comparison, and I'm just going to put it out there just because he looks a little like a old what we call him. I'm thinking of like American History X, like that kind of like I don't want to say yeah, like that kind of scary white kid. But like Owen is the nicest kid. Like it's nothing like that. He's just an enormous human being that's got the big like biker beard and like the haircut. Like he looks like an intimidating dude. But he's great to talk to. Like, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea if that's what Owen's about. That's just what he looks like, and he's also basically a power lifter that is just enormous, in the weight room as well. So he's just a big kid that also looks like he would come out of a biker bar and, kick the hell out of you.
Which I think I want my offensive linemen to look like that.
The nastiness.
They need to start.
You're not messing with a group with that guy in.
They need to start recruiting more biker bar guys. It was awesome though to see some of those guys, because I'd never really seen like a Ty Haywood in person, and it's funny to me to look at all of these guys and realize they're going to be sophomores and juniors, or maybe seniors in high school next year. And if you're not like in between 6'5" and 6'7", you're just not playing offensive tackle in college football these days. It's just like Myron McKinney that I played high school ball with. He's a big ass dude. He wasn't 6'7".
Guys, you interviewed Josh Iasosa last week. Big kid, really big kid. And I remember one of the first interviews I did with him, and I was talking to him about what Oklahoma's playing with him, and he was like, "I'm not 6'6". I know I'm not playing tackle." Like he didn't have any illusions about what it is. Like, and that those guys are, I mean, when I talk to people and people are like, why do you focus on offensive line and line play so much? These guys are unicorns. You don't see people this size that can move walking around the streets like that. That's why you can see a guy that could play corner any shopping mall you walked into in America. There's 30 of them that height and weight match, but guys like this, you don't see them every day. And that there are so many that Oklahoma is both in on and in good shape with it's really amazing. Like that they really have placed themselves in a great spot with, like we've talked about, Fasusi, Ty Haywood, Lamont Rogers, who was on campus on Monday. Eddie, we talked about that a little bit on Monday, but we didn't really get into how that visit went. And from everything I've gathered, I think Bill Bedenbaugh continues to do a really good job because there are several schools that want him to look at NIL. Let's just be really honest about it. They want him focused on that and look what we can do and this kind of stuff. And some of the numbers I've heard, and this is not just for Lamont, this is for all these big-time guys, they're humongous. They're just massive numbers. And I don't think Oklahoma either wants to match some of these numbers or B, is going to. Like, I just don't think that's the way. Now, it's not like they're not putting something together. They absolutely are. But that's not, Brent's been very upfront about that. That's not what he wants this, program to be constructed about. That's not what they want to live on. And I think they have worked very hard to say, once you're here and once you're part of this, that's when, guys start making real money is when they're part of the program. They've proven something on the field, that they're one of the guys, rather than you showing up as a freshman making more money than all the guys starting.
But here we are, though. This is the place where we're at right now. We watched all those guys yesterday. You talked about how, not extraordinary, but how just different it is to have those many guys in this area that you can recruit from. And everybody's going to see all these guys, and they're going to put them on their list, and they're going to say, these are the guys Oklahoma has to get if they're going to get back to being a great offensive line. And if they see them get picked off and it looks like they're going to the NIL schools and this guy's going there, at that point, it's going to be a major backlash against Oklahoma and Brent and his approach to this. And I'm not saying that that's fair, but we had one season of this already. And look, losing Caden Green, I understand, is a big part of the emotions of it. But you go through another class, and we're talking about 26 kids too. But you go through that and you see these guys getting picked off by the NIL schools. That signals a real problem for Oklahoma moving forward.
Well, and it does, Kerry, because like with Caden Green, you can at least say, okay, he's an in-state guy. Missouri built those rules to make it easy. The state of Missouri built those rules to make it easier for the University of Missouri to recruit guys from in-state, pay them more money, do all those kind of things. So, okay, there are some built-in inherent advantages there. Like, you get that. Same thing with Williams-Winery. But say they go and beat Oklahoma for a Lamont Rogers or a Michael Fasusi, that changes the math on this because now they're beating you in areas where guys, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, who is Missouri beating Oklahoma for in the Dallas Metroplex? That is not a thing that ever happens. Like that's not possible. And even now, it's like, I still don't know if I can completely believe it, but it's possible. Like, and if it starts to happen, then Oklahoma does have to look at it and have to say, is this what's right for us? And can we be the program we expect to be living that life? So I don't know. I mean, those are questions I can't answer, but I do think to kind of get back to what people do want to hear. I don't want us to get down that road, but again, Lamont Rogers went with three of his teammates, Legend Bay, who we saw on Sunday as well, Markel Ford, the 2026 safety offer, and as well as Ryan Gilbert, the 2026 corner, that picked up his offer while they were at Oklahoma. So Mesquite Horn is going to be a stop for me probably this spring and almost certainly again this season with four guys that hold Oklahoma offers. There aren't more than probably 5 programs in the country that could make claim to that. Now you have Mesquite Horn, a good program out in kind of east side of Dallas, but it's pretty amazing that they've got that level of talent all on one roster right now.
I'll throw out a easy one. Who do you feel better about now because of after watching them and talking to them Sunday?
I would say, and I'll even do one better. I'll rank the three between Rogers, Michael Fasusi, and Ty Haywood. I would still probably say Ty Haywood is 1. I would say Lamont Rogers is 2, and probably Michael Fasusi is 3, which is kind of crazy. Now,
yes.
I think all 3 could end up in Oklahoma's class. Like, I don't want to make it sound like, because Michael Fasusi's 3rd, he's just out the window. There is a lot of Texas buzz right now. There's a lot there. I think that largely comes from people kind of playing musical chairs. I talked about it earlier where I said OU, A&M, and Texas are all kind of involved in these same battles. I think a lot of people are putting Ty Haywood over in Oklahoma's, on their little docket, putting Michael Fasusi over at Texas, and saying Lamont Rogers could end up at A&M. And I don't think it could be that none of those are right. Like that's absolutely within the possible outcomes. But I think when you start doing that again, everybody's kind of like, musical chairs. Like, okay, he's got to end up somewhere. So I think with all of them, there are several possibilities. But I would say I think Haywood's still the most likely. The danger thing I would look at for Oklahoma, because I think of any of them, Haywood to Oklahoma is probably the most likely of any outcome between the 3 players. But Alabama's been a big deal to him for a long time. And I honestly, I was talking to one of our buddies and we were having a conversation, and, I don't want to out him out there, but a guy we all know. And he was like, yeah, I remember that very first conversation. He talked about how big of a deal Alabama was to him, and this player being Fasusi. And it's just one of those things you're like, that can linger sometimes. And now it seems like Alabama's kind of involved. I don't know that he's a top of the line priority for them. Like, I think they maybe have a few other guys. I know they really like Andrew Babalola that Oklahoma's obviously also involved with. But I think there's maybe a few other guys that they're a little more zeroed in on right now. But if that goes that way, then that could get really interesting. But I like where Oklahoma is. Ty Haywood keeps talking to Oklahoma. He stays in frequent contact. That's all going the way it should. So it's high stakes for Oklahoma, but it's also really interesting because there is a world where this is an absolutely unbelievably offensive line class.
I have no way to back this up. A lot of times we come back when you're like, yeah, that guy's an OU guy. John Turntine seemed like a Texas guy to me.
I could buy that. When you talk to them, Ty feels like a Bill Bedenbaugh guy. I know, Eddie, you didn't get a chance to talk to him, but when you go back and watch that interview, he's very direct. He's not like, there's no fluff to it. Like, he's going to answer what you've asked. Like, he's not, I don't want to say like bubbly, like he's a mean kid, but he's about his business. Like, that's all he's there to do.
Kind of seems like that's the way that those guys are, though, from like the Denton Ryans or the Denton Geyers of the world.
Yes. Ryan doesn't like. Caleb Hicks was the same way. Caleb's not there to mess around or like he's gonna. And again, they're both perfectly nice kids. I don't want to make it sound like they're tough guys or or bad guys or anything like that. They're just very direct. Like, they are who they are. And you're right that has something to do with the program they come from. Mike. I would say of the 3, Mike feels like a Texas guy to me. Like, just kind of bubbly, and there's a little more happy-go-lucky to it, that kind of deal. And that's just a very surface look at it. But you're right, Eddie. Like, there are guys you talk to, and you're like, I'd bet money he goes here because he just fits that personality type. Like, he fits what they're about.
Perfect example, different position, different side of the ball. Marcus Wimberly, I would be almost shocked if he didn't end up at OU.
Agreed. I completely agree. That's that kid's and for those, we should probably tell everybody, Eddie, we had a great interview. He was awesome to talk to, really gave us a lot of depth, and we had a problem with our card, and it just happens sometimes, and that's the way it goes. But he really likes Oklahoma. Talked about, how important faith was to him and his relationship with Brandon Hall and how, and the energy that Hall and Venables and that whole crew brings. And I did want to say earlier when we were talking about Zac Alley and you guys were talking about Alley and Venables off in the corner working, Marcus James in his interview, which you can find up on the Sooner Scoop editorial page, he talks about like Marcus being the linebacker commitment from Carl Albert, talks about getting to know Zac Alley, and he goes, he's just a mini Brent Venables. Like they are copies of each other. And he goes, it's the same energy, the same thing. And we talk, like I feel like I'm talking to BV. Like it was very interesting because you hear that stuff, but for a kid that's being recruited by both of them, he was like, oh yeah, they're carbon copies.
No doubt.
By the way, I would say out of everybody that you guys showed on the YouTube show yesterday, now it's the Zane Rowe kid that's 27, right?
Yes.
That guy, I want to see that guy in 2 years. I mean,
he's going to be a monster.
Holy crap.
And for those that don't know, I mean, that's Denton Geyer. That's the same program as Peyton Bowen and Jackson Arnold. So Oklahoma's had plenty of success at his school. And he camped at OU last summer. But yeah.
You would not go to any high school.
More than anything, I loved how competitive he is.
You wouldn't go to any high school and see that kid out there and think, that's a Division I player. Like, there's no high school you can go to and not watch that guy for 5 minutes and say, yeah, that's a player. And he's a freshman.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Because he's 6'4", 225 right now, and has some muscle on him, and he's still in that like
baby development. Yeah, he's still in that baby development. Like, oh my God, this kid hasn't even gone through puberty.
So
yet.
did he play on the varsity last year?
Yeah. It played, that district with like Allen and all those schools, and he's playing varsity football. So yeah, he's. I don't know. I don't think he started, but I'm not 100% about that. I need to check a little bit. But I mean, he definitely played for Geyer as a freshman, which is unbelievable. I think they've been to the state prior to this year. I think they've been to at least the state semis 4 straight years or something like that.
Not to like piss anybody off, but if you wanted to make like an argument that Oklahoma doesn't have the right quarterback in 2025, would you make that argument after seeing Grady Adamson and Jamarian Ficklin?
You're saying if their current commitment is not the right guy,
right?
Okay.
Are you saying from within the state too?
Yeah,
or just
yeah.
We could talk Kevin Perry. Like,
I love Grady.
I love Grady. I've loved Grady for a long time.
But again, it's like I think Kevin's this is nothing to do with I don't think he's good. I think he's a really good player. I just feel like Grady Adamson, you're going to look back and you go, how the hell did he get out of state? But then again, his offer list and Jamarian's offer list, like I guess you can't really argue with it. People just aren't as interested.
Part of me, Eddie, I was talking to a high school coaching buddy actually about an hour ago before we got started with the pod, and we were having that conversation about both Adamson and Ficklin, at Muskogee, and just kind of how they're looking around. And his impression was that it might be kind of spring portal related, where schools are going to come out of that portal, kind of know what their numbers are more realistically, and then and then also you're going to have a lot of these quarterbacks starting to really find. I mean, and a lot of guys are committed, but you'll have more where they make their decisions. A lot of who their 2025 quarterback is, and then hey, that could jump in your direction. You could get a win there. But yeah, guys, I mean, if you told me that Oklahoma, Kevin Sperry, for whatever reason, he ends up somewhere else, he makes a different choice, and Oklahoma has to live with taking Grady Adamson or Jamarian Ficklin, I said this on YouTube. I'm fine with that. And that's no diss on Kevin Sperry. I think Kevin Sperry is really, really good. I think he's the deserved number one quarterback in the state. But that gap between he, Adamson, and Ficklin is not nearly as big as people think it is. Those are really, really good quarterbacks. And it's a statement of how insanely good the class is this year, where the number 4 quarterback is Shaker Rising, who is a really good player in his own right, won a state title for Jinx as a freshman. So, I mean, it's insane the amount of quarterback play that there is in Oklahoma right now.
And not even to mention, I don't think he's an OU guy, but the David McCombs kid over at Edward Memorial, he's committed to Kansas. I think he's a really good player. It's silly.
And now that you say that, I haven't actually put up my 2025 rankings, but I was just looking at them. I actually have David 4 and Shaker 5. And Shaker's my number 5 quarterback in the class. He's committed to Utah right now.
Yeah. Which just recently happened, right? Like maybe a month ago or something?
Almost to the day, February 12th.
And again, I think Kevin Sperry's really, really good. Obviously, you don't see his arm talent as much. Like when we walk away from the camp setting, he was throwing lasers all over the place. I just having seen him play twice, Carl Albert play twice in the state championship as well as up at Guthrie this year. I love the way that he leads the team, interacts with his teammates, all that kind of stuff. And I think that they'll be just fine. It's just it's interesting to me that I think Grady Adamson and what he is, the strides that he's made physically that I was telling you about on Sunday, he looks like a completely different guy than we saw. I guess basically two springs ago when he was going into his sophomore year at Deer Creek.
Are we just?
I would say Eddie. He was physically similar to Marcus Wimberly, wouldn't you say? Kind of that same.
Definitely not as tall,
half,
but yeah, his lower half. I mean, he's a rock.
Yeah.
So, real quick on Kevin Sperry, I was just thinking about this. Are we not going to get into this thing this summer? If he doesn't show up for every session and throw, it's going to be well, he's out now. He clearly doesn't care as much as he once did.
Oh God, I hope not.
Because
what he did last year was insane.
A Jeff Lebby guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just for Lebby. He doesn't like Seth as much, so he didn't show up for every camp.
Yeah, I hope not.
But, I mean, do we have – what's the last thing on record from Sperry saying he's firmly committed to
he tweeted something over the weekend after the Future Freaks.
Yeah, he's been the guy that's letting you know when a commitment. I felt that was a commitment.
Okay, I guess I haven't been following him.
He does the gif of him and Brent, and he has the eyeballs, and yeah.
So there's no reason to think that. I think we all kind of thought oh boy, let's see this fall apart now.
He kind of silenced it quickly because after the move was made, we went a couple of days without hearing from Kevin. But then at the state championship,
he shot everything down.
Really did.
He Porter Mosered it basically when we asked him about it on the field after the state championship game.
All right.
There have been rumors, but there's nothing in his action that says something's amiss. He's done everything that you would expect.
All right.
We broke down the wide receivers and running back stuff. If you want to get into that, just go check out the YouTube. Brock Boyd was really good. I think Caden Jones is going to just – the idea that he has 2 more years left in high school is kind of insane to me.
The idea of the 2026 running back class is not that you already have Hatton. You already have one.
Sure.
It's kind of one of these guys going to have to jump.
It kind of feels like Caden Jones will be in that group. Something would have to happen. But I was super impressed with Rylan Morris as well.
And I messed up.
They've got Javian Osborne coming in this weekend. Tomorrow on Thursday. One of the top 2-3 backs in the state of Texas in that class. So I mean, they are. There was kind of that question of when is DeMarco Murray going to go to that next level? It feels like 2026 may be that class where oh God, he just signed 2 of the top 5 backs in the country in the same class.
Not to mention that taking it from the next level, he just signed the number 1 running back. It's already pretty damn good.
Absolutely fair.
Okay, I got basketball bearing down on us. I think it's probably about time to
not starting at 2, by the way.
Oh,
there's still 4 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
They're way behind.
Oh, by the way, there is some breaking news. I guess. Did you see that?
I saw. It was funny.
You're Mr. Basketball.
It was funny with the way Porter answered the Javion McCollum question was interesting. So just it was good to get him back Saturday. Shoulder's doing good. No worries. He said well, there was that soreness the day after, and so we'll just kind of wait and see. So you're wondering where Suarez seems like he has that accelerated recovery gene in him. I'm going to come back a heck of a lot quicker than any of you ever thought. Maybe McCollum is a normal person, and this injury is actually taking a lot longer than what they might have first thought.
But McCollum also out today for the Big 12.
Well, disregard everything I said about the point spread. I would imagine that skyrockets. Shit, I need to get
it now.
I need to get to Vegas.
Oh boy!
You hope the committee can realize what they've gone through during the last month, and if all three of those pieces are healthy, they will be a much different team next week.
I still think that, like, even with those guys today, and if they were to lose, I think that they would be pretty safely in, as you've said here for the last month. Basically,
Porter just
Bob
needs to use his post game saying how banged up they've been and
Yep.
how they needed to get healthy, and that's why they were extra cautious about playing anyone today, and just make it a whole woe is us thing.
cry.
Maybe, yeah, that might. Although Pete Prisco will probably come after him if he does that.
Who's that?
He's a CBS scout. Did you see the deal about Caleb Williams? He's knocking him down in his draft because he cried after he lost.
Cried after the game.
Well,
it was on Pardon My Take.
I don't think that the Chicago Bears, they're used to people crying. Sorry, Bob. They are. They're used to people
Shots
crying.
fired, and he's wearing Bears gear.
It's not. Bob knows they're bad. That's a bad franchise
Bob
right
knows
now.
that the best quarterback might be like Eric Kramer or Jim Harbaugh in like the last 30 years.
It is crazy. It's crazy to me
That's
that
reaching Browns territory right there.
Did you guys see that the Oregon had their pro day yesterday, and only one GM was able to go because of all the trades, the free
Trade
agency
deadline,
stuff
yeah.
within the NFL. Seems like a really poor planning.
Yeah.
Although I guess OU had theirs yesterday, but they didn't necessarily have it.
Was it from the Seahawks?
No, it was actually I think
the Bears.
The
Yeah,
Bears
the Bears
GM
went
to go see Bo Nix. So Bo Nix going number one over Caleb
Going
Williams.
number one. Done.
That would be a huge mistake.
I mean,
I don't think that's happening.
I'll believe whatever they do. I thought Trubisky, I was like, all right, fine. Trubisky's our guy. Like, whoever they go with, I'm going to have full faith in, just ready to be disappointed.
But you gotta admit, you've done the Trubisky thing. You don't need a Drake May thing.
Exactly.
No North Carolina. And what's his name at Washington's not exactly tearing it up. Happy for Baker, though. I want to say that. Saw he had his press conference. We are going to be back out at his Meals for Wheels No Bogeys thing this year. So we'll have a little celebration out there. Maybe we'll even bring home the autograph poster this time. Who knows?
If George can remember it.
Not here to defend himself.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back again next week. We will have a family business podcast. Ryan Spangler is going to be the guest tonight, so we'll have that up tomorrow, and tons of YouTube content up right now. Go check it out. Remember, $1 will get you all that you want on Sooners. Get you everything, full access. And you'll be welcome with open arms by the Crimson Corner, let me tell you. So that's going to do it. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.